What if the real reason you're suffering isn't because your life is broken, but because you believe it shouldn't be? What if your pain doesn't come from the 83 problems you face, but from the 84th? The one no one talks about? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you a story that might just flip your entire understanding of life upside down. It's a tale from the time of the Buddha. Simple, short, but astonishingly profound. And once you hear it, you may never look at your struggles the same way again. We all want life to be better. We want peace, love, health, stability. We want our families to understand us, our careers to flourish, our bodies to cooperate, and our minds to be calm. But reality has a different plan. Just when things start to get better, something else goes wrong. The car breaks down. Someone gets sick. We lose a job. The anxiety returns. A friend betrays us. A child rebels. It never ends. And in our heads, a voice whispers, if only this one thing could be fixed, then I'd finally be okay. But that voice lies. Because once that one thing is fixed, another problem takes its place. Have you noticed this? It's like life has an endless supply of difficulties on standby, ready to deploy whenever we feel like we've made progress. And so we run, chasing fixes, books, pills, prayers, success, status, relationships, hoping that someday, eventually, we'll outrun the suffering. But that day never comes. Why? Because we're stuck chasing what the Buddha called the 84th problem. The belief that we can live without problems. And that belief is the root of all suffering. Let me tell you a story. Thousands of years ago, a tired farmer made a long journey to visit the Buddha. He had heard that this man, the enlightened one, held deep wisdom, maybe even answers. When he arrived, he bowed and began listing all the problems in his life. My crops fail too often. My wife complains. My children don't listen. The weather is unpredictable. Thieves steal from me. I work hard, but it's never enough. I'm exhausted. Please, Buddha, help me fix all these things. The Buddha listened quietly. Then he looked at the man and said, I cannot help you with that. The farmer blinked, stunned. But aren't you a great teacher? A holy man? Aren't you supposed to help people? The Buddha nodded gently. Yes. But not in the way you expect. Everyone has 83 problems, he said. Sometimes your crops will fail. Sometimes people will be rude. Sometimes your body will get sick. This is life. You cannot escape these problems. The farmer frowned. Then what's the point of all this? Are you saying I just have to suffer? The Buddha smiled. I can help you with the 84th problem. The man leaned in. What's that? That you think you shouldn't have any problems. And in that single sentence, everything changed. The story sounds simple, but its meaning is like a key. A key to unlocking peace, not by fixing everything around us, but by releasing the one illusion that keeps us trapped, the belief that life should be free from discomfort, disappointment, and pain. This video is not about how to eliminate your problems. It's about something far more radical, and far more liberating. It's about what happens when you stop resisting the very nature of life itself. Because maybe the problem is not the problem. Maybe the real problem is our refusal to have one. Let's dive into this ancient teaching. You may never look at your suffering the same way again. He had walked for 2 days straight. Dust clung to his feet. His clothes were stiff with sweat. And his back ached from years of carrying the weight of survival. But still, the farmer pressed forward, driven by one desperate hope, to speak with the Buddha. He had heard rumors that this man, this wandering monk, this teacher, held answers not just for kings and sages, but for ordinary people like him. People who worked hard, who loved and suffered, who broke and still kept going. When he finally reached the grove where the Buddha was teaching, he waited at the edge of the crowd. His heart pounded. This wasn't just another priest or philosopher. Something about this man was different. The Buddha didn't lecture. He didn't sell salvation. He sat in stillness. He listened. And when he spoke, it was like he was speaking directly to you, not just your ears, but your soul. When the others had gone, the farmer stepped forward. He bowed low and said, "Buddha, I need your help. My life is full of problems, and I can't carry them anymore." The Buddha nodded. "Tell me," he said. And so the farmer began. "My crops don't grow well anymore. The rains come late or not at all. Sometimes floods. Sometimes droughts. I work from sunrise to sunset. And still, it's not enough. My wife. We used to love each other. Now we argue about money. About the children. About everything. My son is lazy. My daughter is stubborn. The neighbors gossip. Thieves steal my harvest. Taxes rise. My back is failing. My spirit is tired. And even when things are okay, I'm still anxious, wondering what problem will come next." He took a deep breath. "Please, tell me how to fix this." The Buddha listened silently. Not once did he interrupt. When the farmer was finished, he waited a few moments before replying. "Everyone," the Buddha said softly, "has 83 problems." The farmer frowned. "What do you mean?" The Buddha continued. "Sometimes your crops will fail. Sometimes they'll thrive. Sometimes people will love you. Other times they'll betray you. There will be sickness, aging, death. Things you love will be lost. People you care about will misunderstand you. These are not your personal failures. They are simply part of being human." The farmer's eyes narrowed. "So, there's no way to solve them?" The Buddha replied. "You will fix some. Yes. You may improve your soil. Rebuild your marriage. Convince your children to behave. But for every problem you solve, another will appear. That's the nature of existence." The farmer's shoulders slumped. "Then what's the point? Why should I even try?" The Buddha smiled. "Because you're mistaking the real problem." The farmer looked up. "You see," the Buddha said, "I cannot help you with your 83 problems. But I can help you with the 84th. "The 84th? The farmer asked. "What's that?" "That you believe you should not have any problems." For a long moment, the farmer just stood there, silent. He had come expecting advice, tips, rules, maybe a miracle. But this felt like something else entirely. He sat down in the dirt and stared at the ground. No one had ever said this to him before. He had spent his whole life wrestling with problems, convinced that if he worked hard enough, prayed long enough, did everything right, then maybe one day, the problems would stop. That someday he would reach the top of the mountain and finally breathe freely. But here, sitting before a man who had nothing, no wealth, no power, no armor, he heard a truth that hit deeper than any sermon ever had, that problems weren't the enemy. The war against them was. The Buddha saw the shift in his face. "You are not broken," the Buddha said gently. "You are alive. And being alive means facing the changing winds of joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame. The wise do not try to escape the storm. They learn how to stand in it." The farmer felt something rise in his chest. Tears. Maybe. Or relief. Or simply breath he hadn't allowed himself to exhale in years. So I should stop trying to fix everything? No, said the Buddha. Fix what you can. But do not demand that life be free of pain. Do not measure your worth by how smooth the path is. Measure it by how you walk through the thorns. The farmer sat with that. The sun was beginning to dip low in the sky. Somewhere in the distance, birds called out. The world hadn't changed. His wife still waited at home. The fields were still dry. The taxes still due. But something inside him had shifted. He looked up. How do I begin? The Buddha said. Begin by letting go of the 84th problem. And with that, the farmer bowed again. He stood up. And he walked back the way he came. His burdens were still there, but they no longer crushed him. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said to yourself, once I get through this, then I'll finally be okay? Maybe it was after a breakup, after losing your job, after paying off a debt, after getting sick. We all do this. We hold our breath through pain, believing that peace lies just on the other side. That one day, when everything falls into place, we'll arrive at this magical state called happy. But that day never comes. Does it? Because life, as it turns out, doesn't work that way. And that's not your fault. It's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because of what the Buddha taught over 2.500 years ago, that suffering, dukkha, is woven into the very fabric of human life. Now, dukkha is often translated as suffering. But that's not quite right. It's deeper than pain. It's the subtle, persistent discomfort that clings to everything. It's the itch you can't scratch. The anxiety that hums in the background, even when things are going well. It's the restlessness that whispers, this isn't quite it. Something's still missing. Imagine eating a delicious meal. And as soon as you finish the last bite, a part of you starts thinking, what's for dessert? That's dukkha. Or maybe you fall in love. And it's magical, thrilling, intoxicating. But then you start to worry, what if I lose this? What if they leave? That's dukkha. Even in our happiest moments, there's this quiet, unspoken fear that it won't last. Or worse, that it's not enough. And that's exactly what the Buddha saw. He wasn't a pessimist. He wasn't saying life is all suffering. He was saying, this is what happens when you expect life to be perfect. Most people think suffering comes from the big things, losing a loved one, getting fired, facing illness. And yes, those things hurt deeply. But the Buddha pointed to something even more subtle. Suffering comes from clinging, from our attachment to things being a certain way, and our refusal to accept when they're not. Think about it. You get frustrated in traffic, not because of the cars, but because you believe you shouldn't be stuck. You feel anxious about aging, not because your body is changing, but because you think it shouldn't. You argue with your partner, not just because of what they said, but because you're holding on to how they should have treated you instead. We suffer not simply because things are hard, but because we resist what is. This resistance is the real source of suffering. The Buddha compared life to a cartwheel that's slightly off-center. No matter how smoothly it turns, it always wobbles. There's always some friction, some instability, some imperfection. That wobble is dukkha. It doesn't mean the cart is broken. It just means it's part of the ride. But here's the thing. We've been taught to believe that if something wobbles, we must fix it. That anything less than perfect means we're failing. That discomfort is unacceptable. And so we spend our lives tightening bolts, patching wheels, blaming the road, trying to control everything around us just to make the ride feel smoother. But that's the 84th problem again. The belief that we should be able to fix everything. That the goal of life is to make it painless, seamless, and predictable. And when that doesn't happen, we suffer even more. Not because the ride is bumpy, but because we think it shouldn't be. Here's a secret most people don't realize: the more you try to escape suffering, the more it chases you. Think of a man trying to hold water in his hands. The tighter he squeezes, the faster it slips through his fingers. That's what we do with control, with certainty, with peace. We squeeze harder, hoping it won't escape, and in doing so, we lose it faster. The Buddha's teaching was the opposite of what most of us are told. Peace doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from understanding it. When you stop expecting life to be problem-free, you stop being surprised when problems come. You stop fighting the truth. You stop being disappointed by reality. And something strange begins to happen. You begin to feel free. Not because the problems are gone, but because you've stopped believing they shouldn't be there. Let's make this real. Let's say your partner forgets your birthday. Ouch. That hurts. The pain is real. But there are two levels to this pain. First, the moment itself. The forgetting. The emptiness. The disappointment. That's the raw pain. It's like touching a hot stove. It stings. But then comes the second layer, the story. They don't love me. I'm not important. I always get forgotten. This is just like last year. That's where the suffering grows. That's the dukkha. And that suffering comes not from the event itself, but from the belief that this shouldn't have happened. The Buddha's invitation is to feel the first pain, but drop the second. Let life hurt, but don't let it control your mind. Another example, let's say you lose your job. Again, the pain is real. Fear, anger, shame, uncertainty. Those are human responses. But then we pile on: I'm a failure. I'll never be okay. This shouldn't happen to me. And that's where we suffer unnecessarily. That's the 84th problem whispering in our ear again. But what if you could meet life exactly as it is, without the added resistance? What if you could feel pain without collapsing into despair? What if you could stop asking life to be perfect, and start asking yourself how to live well in the midst of imperfection? That's what the Buddha taught. Not how to escape life, but how to live deeply within it. Not how to eliminate discomfort, but how to make peace with it. This doesn't mean you stop trying. It doesn't mean you accept abuse or give up your dreams. It means you stop expecting a world without difficulty. You stop being surprised by the inevitable. You meet the 83 problems with eyes open, heart steady, breath calm, and most of all, you stop chasing the 84th. That chase is exhausting. It's the endless scrolling, the self-help rabbit hole, the pursuit of the next solution, the belief that the next fix will finally be it. But the truth is, there is no it. There is only this moment, this breath, this life, with all its beauty and brokenness, with all its joys and sorrows, with 83 problems, and the chance, in every moment, to let go of the one that keeps us trapped. The Buddha didn't offer a life without suffering. He offered a life beyond suffering. And that path begins not by changing the world, but by changing how you relate to it. It begins the moment you stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "Can I be present with this too?" The wobble will always be there, but so will the peace, if you know where to look. So what exactly is the 84th problem? Let's name it clearly. It's the craving for a problem-free life. The belief that happiness begins only when struggle ends. That peace is waiting somewhere out there, beyond the chaos, the heartbreak, the unanswered questions. This belief is so deeply wired into our modern minds. We don't even realize we're chasing it. Every time we say I'll be happy when. That's the 84th problem. When I make more money. When I find the right partner. When I lose the weight. When they apologize. When I get control. When things finally go my way. It's always in the future. Always just out of reach. And here's the tragedy, even when we get what we want, the peace never lasts. Why? Because the craving never ends. The Buddha called it tanha, thirst. And it's not a normal thirst. It's the kind of thirst that only grows stronger the more you drink. It whispers that contentment is one more achievement away. One more fix. One more breakthrough. But the Buddha saw through it all. He saw that this endless striving, the 84th problem, is not just a mental habit. It's the very fuel of our suffering. It's the invisible chain that keeps us running in circles. Imagine this, a man is lost in the desert. He's dehydrated, dizzy, desperate. He sees a mirage, a beautiful oasis. He runs toward it, falls to his knees, drinks the sand, chokes, stands up, keeps running. That's us. That's what craving does. It promises relief, but delivers more thirst. So what's the alternative? Do we stop caring? Stop dreaming? No. The Buddha wasn't telling us to be passive. He wasn't saying, do nothing. He was saying, crave less. Live more. He was showing us the middle path. A way to move through life without being ruled by the fantasy of perfection. Because here's the truth most of us never question, life has never been perfect. Not for kings. Not for saints. Not even for the Buddha. He too faced sickness, betrayal, aging, loss. But he didn't suffer because of those things. He suffered when he resisted them. And when he stopped resisting, when he let go of the 84th problem, he found a peace that couldn't be shaken. That's what we're really looking for, isn't it? Not a perfect life, but a peaceful relationship with life. One where we can sit with uncertainty without needing answers. Where we can walk through grief without needing to escape it. Where we can love people deeply, even knowing they might leave. That's the freedom the Buddha pointed to. And it doesn't come from fixing the 83 problems. It comes from dropping the 84th. So what does that look like today? In your life, it might mean noticing your stress and saying, this is hard. And that's okay. It might mean feeling anxious, but no longer needing the anxiety to go away in order to feel whole. It might mean waking up tomorrow and saying, even if nothing changes, I can still live with presence, with kindness, with awareness. This is the revolution most people miss. The power to be still inside, even when life is spinning outside. The ability to meet problems, not as enemies, but as inevitable guests. And maybe, just maybe, even as teachers. Because sometimes your pain is not a punishment. Sometimes it's a path. Sometimes it's not in the way. It is the way. That's the paradox the Buddha revealed. You stop suffering the moment you stop insisting that you shouldn't suffer. You stop drowning the moment you stop fighting the waves. You stop running the moment you realize there is nowhere to go but here. And so we return to the story. A tired farmer. A wise teacher. A dusty path. 83 problems, and one that didn't exist. The farmer thought he needed answers. He thought he needed everything in his life to change. But in the end, the only thing that changed was his mind. That's the power of insight. It doesn't erase reality. It transforms your relationship with it. And now it's your turn. Right now, as you're watching this, you may have your own 83 problems. bills, loneliness, guilt, uncertainty, regret. Don't run from them. Don't fear them. Don't wait until they're gone to start living. Instead, ask yourself, can I drop the 84th problem today? Can I stop needing life to be perfect? And start walking through it with open eyes, open hands, and an open heart. Because here's the secret: the day you stop chasing a life without problems is the day peace starts chasing you. And when that happens, when you finally let go of the 84th, you may discover that the life you've been waiting for was already here.